Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from you well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. Come to you back with another lesson through the Spirit, and I'm going to entitle this one, This Truth Makes You an Enemy of the World. Because when you come into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and you're no longer under the vibration of this world that's being ran by the self-proclaimed white man, which is really Esau, Edom, spoken about in the scriptures. The wicked, the sons of the wicked, which is these self-proclaimed white people, these wicked elite, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and pretty much the whole world, especially our people, the nation of Israel, the 2/3 of these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, they're under that vibration of Satan, under that vibration of Esau, Edom, pretty much being plugged into the matrix. But when you come out of the world, when you renew your mind, renew your spirit, pretty much brainwash yourself from all the stuff that you used to do in the world, whatever it may be. You may have been in the world, you may have smoked weed or you might have loved eating pork or whatever it may have been. But when you no longer do those things, you pretty much put a target on your back, because now you're not pushing wickedness like 2/3 of our people are doing. They're pretty much still under that same vibration of Esau, Edom. A lot of celebrities, rappers, ball players, the main reason they get a lot of money is to lead the nation of Israel astray. And they've done a great job at it, from these rappers, these celebrities, these ball players, these politicians. They're pretty much led Jake away from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And they're going to have a lot of blood on their hands, ultimately, for leading their people astray. But even these other Israelite camps that are pushing false doctrine, that aren't pushing the MOTB, that they're not pushing Jacob's trouble, they're not pushing to their congregation for what's about to come upon the planet Earth. And the only way to be delivered out of it, which is going to be if Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is going to have mercy on you, if Yahweh's blood is going to cover you. That's why when you come into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, now you pretty much make yourself a target. Now, Satan is targeting you now more than ever. And as you grow in this truth, as you grow in the spirit, those demons get they get stronger. But speaking to myself first and foremost, as you grow in this truth, the spirit also grows. You're being more edified. But as you grow in this truth, those demons also get stronger. But that's a part of the walk. That's what comes with serving Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. This is Isaiah 59 and verse 15. Yeah, truth faileth, and he that departed from evil maketh himself a prey. And that's right. When you come into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and you come out of the ways of the world, you're departing from evil. So ultimately now, people that you used to hang with in the world, friends that you used to have in the world, things that you used to do, now that you stop doing them, now you putting that target on your back. Now people are questioning, damn, why you not eating pork no more? Damn, you used to smoke with us, why you not smoking with us no more? Damn, we used to, sell these drugs, why you not selling these drugs no more? So pretty much you departing from evil. You departing from the ways of the world, the wicked ways of the world, the sins, the iniquity. And the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai saw it, and it displeased them that there was no judgment. That's right, constantly being persecuted by our own people, by these heathens, Esau, Edom, coming against you at work, coming against you in your everyday errands, wherever it may be. Now you got that target on your back. A lot of the times you ask yourself, damn, why are these people coming against me so hard? More than ever, before I came into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, these people didn't used to come at me like that, but now they do. Ultimately, because now you have the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai in you. You have the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Holy Spirit. And these people hate that. They hate that light that shines on their wickedness. This is 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 11. Persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra, what persecutions I endured, but out of them all the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushua delivered me. That's right. This is going into Paul and all the times he was being persecuted by his own people, the nation of Israel, stoning him, trying to put him to death, bearing false witness. These are all the things that the nation of Israel loves to do. They've always came against the prophets of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. A lot of them, they got put to death. But ultimately, it's the same thing today. Our own people come against us the hardest. Ultimately because they don't like to hear the rebuke. They don't like to hear the reproof. They don't like to hear for them. They don't like to hear for us to tell them to get right. Ultimately because they love doing wickedness. And that's why majority of Jake, they're not going to come out of that mindset till they come back in the kingdom. That's why they're going to have to be destroyed by the way of fire and suffer that second death by the way of the missiles, that nuclear fire, and be brought back through the loins of the elect, be children of the elect. They're not going to get it on this side. Verse 12, and all that will live godly in Hamashiach Yahushai shall suffer persecution. That's right. Now that we're completely separate, completely, live a holy lifestyle, and these Christians, they get that word confused. In their minds, they think holy is just, you're floating around, you're reading the Bible 24/7. You can't do no wrong. No, it means being separate from the world, being, completely separate from the ways of this world, which is wicked. This current world is wicked. That's why the law, statutes, commandments has always separated the nation of Israel, from the rest of these heathen nations. But ultimately, the only ones who are going to come back into the knowledge of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua and separate themselves from this world are going to be the elect, us of the hopeful elect. We keep the law, statutes, commandments to the best of our ability, but, we know that that's not going to deliver us. That's why we have our mediator, which is Yahushua. Lord willing, his blood covers us, because his blood is only going to cover the elect. That's what comes with serving Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, is going to be that persecution. But if we endure to the end, we'll be able to be delivered. This is John chapter 15 and verse 18. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. And that's right. Ultimately the world, especially the nation of Israel, the 2/3. But even these heathens out here, they hate the man of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. They hate his elect. Ultimately because they hate Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. They've always been stiff-necked. Never could take authority. Always came up against Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Ultimately because they hate Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. They hate, following, orders, because they don't like following instructions. That's always been the spirit of the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, of the wicked Jake, especially back there in the time of the wilderness. They couldn't take orders from Moses. They pretty much stiff-necked and refused to take instructions. That's why they're going to have to get destroyed. Verse 19, if you were of the world would love his own. And that's right, we're not of this world. That's why these people out here, these 2/3, they look at us with a face of disgust. You can see it in their countenance. The way they come at you. They cut you off in traffic. It's ultimately those demons on them. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hated you. And that's right. Now that we came up out of the ways of Babylon, the great mystery Babylon, which is America, now the world hates us. Now we're not doing all the wickedness that we used to do in the world. We're offending less. People hate that, especially 2/3 of the nation of Israel. And, they look at us like we got 3 heads, because now they see that we don't do the things that we used to do. Now they're like, damn, why, you think you're better than us? But no, ultimately, we came into this truth, and we're not acknowledging our sins. We're acknowledging that we went off. And we hope to be covered by Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. We hope to be covered by the blood of Yahweh Shai. And they hate that. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 15 in the NLT. Our lives are a Hamashiach-like fragrance rising up to the Most High. But this fragrance is perceived differently by those who are being saved and by those who are perishing. And that's right. That's that contrast. The elect, they get along with each other. We're the only ones who can understand each other, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Because ultimately the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, is dwelling in us to be able to do this work, to be able to understand what's going on in the world, to properly break these scriptures down and understand them and feed the flock. But to the 2/3, they hate it. They hate the light that comes out of the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, because that light shines on their wickedness. Verse 16, to those who are perishing, we are a dreadful smell of death and doom. That's right. When we walk among the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, and these heathens, they can see that we condemn, their wickedness, because, when we see wickedness, we pretty much have that disdain face, that disdain countenance on our face, because we know that they're doing wicked, and they can sense that, they can sense that they're going off, and that we see it. But to those who are being saved, we are a life-giving perfume, and who is adequate for such a task as this. And that's right, to the elect, to the hopeful elect, we're a life-giving perfume, a good smell, but to the 2/3, we're a smell of death and doom, because we condemn their wickedness, we condemn their lifestyle that they're living here on the planet Earth, which is completely off. James chapter 4 and verse 4, ye adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with the Most High? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is an enemy of the Most High. And that's right. 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're friends of the world. They're under the vibration of Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, under the vibration of Satan. They've been given over to Satan. And ultimately, that's why they hate the men of the Lord. They hate the hopeful elect, because we completely oppose what they stand for. We oppose wickedness, just like they oppose righteousness. We oppose, wickedness is that light and darkness battle. And 2/3, they're completely pretty much been given over to this devil, the Esau, Edom, self-proclaimed white man. That's why a lot of them, they're going to take that MOTB, which is a microseed, that charagma, spoken about in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16, because they want to be friends with the world. This is Romans chapter 8 and verse 35. Who shall separate us from the love of Hamashiach? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? That's right, all these different things, tribulation, distress, persecution, famine, or nakedness, that's not going to separate us from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, because when you come into this truth, now you have to endure a different type of hell. Now you have to endure the trials and tribulations, your own people coming against you, calling you crazy, calling you bugged out, calling you bums, and eventually it's going to get to the point where we're going to be persecuted by these wicked elite. Esau, Edom is going to come down with that great wrath. He's going to get his hands on some of the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. He's gonna put some of us to death. Some of us are going to have to be martyrs, be beheaded for the testimony of Yahweh Shai. But even then, we're not going to renounce Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. But ultimately, even death can't separate us from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Verse 36, as it is written, for thy sake we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for slaughter. Verse 37, nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Verse 38, for I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, Verse 39, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Yahweh, which is in Hamashiach Yahweh Shah, our Lord. And all these different things that Paul named, they're not going to be able to separate us from Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. All these different things that are coming against us now, and it is only going to increase more and more as that squeeze gets put on the world, because it's only going to get tougher and rougher. That straight gate is only going to get harder. It's not going to get easier to get to the kingdom of heaven. It's going to be a very tough road that we have ahead of us. It's not meant to be easy. That's what comes with serving Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, is being hated by the whole world that's not in the truth, these 2/3 and these heathens. This is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 16. Behold, I send you as forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Yeah, and in these 2/3 of the nation of Israel and these heathens, they're wolves. But we're sheep, because ultimately we can't carry out judgment, from our own doing. We gotta wait until Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai rises up to the prey. Judgment is of the Lord. That's why when we're out here in the world, we gotta be like serpents, wise as a serpent, but harmless as doves. Yeah, we know that these 2/3 and these heathens have a great judgment, coming for them, but we can't go out here and just cuss everybody out, cuss out the 2/3, tell your boss, the Edomite that he's going into slavery. No, we can't do all this ultimately, because we got to wait on Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Verse 17, but beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. That's right. A lot of people that smile at your face right now, these 2/3, your boss at your job, eventually when they find out what you're about, they're gonna try, they're gonna deliver you up to these these wicked elite, these F to the E to the M to the A camps. Verse 18, and ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. That's right. Just like before, the disciples, which later became apostles, they were delivered up, just to the governors and kings for the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Verse 19, but when they deliver you up, take no thought how what ye shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour while ye shall speak. Verse 20, for it is not that ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. Verse 21, and the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. Yeah, so even a lot of our own family, that we think that is on our side, when all hell breaks loose, when the hour of temptation comes, a lot of us, or I want to say a lot of us, but some of us are going to be betrayed by our own family, that we thought had our back, our own mother, our own father, our own brother, to try to save their lives, but ultimately they're not going to be able to deliver themselves, Verse 22, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. That's right, we're hated, all men that aren't in this truth. 2/3 of the nation of Israel, these wicked heathen, these wicked elite, ultimately they hate the man of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, because we're condemning this place. We're telling him to this devil's face that your rulership upon the planet Earth is coming to an end very soon, and they hate that. It's a dreadful sound to their ears, but also to the 2/3, because they're under that same vibration. And when this devil falls, everything that this kingdom stands for is going to fall as well. All the wickedness is going around, the image of the beast, the Caesar Borgia, Christianity, the U.S. dollar, the alphabet agenda, feminism, women ruling over men, heathens being over us. These are all things that are part of this world and that we hate, but just like they hate hearing that, 2/3 of the nation of Israel are going to have to get put to death, and the wicked, the Rothschild, the Rockefeller, and And the rest of these heathen nations are going to be subject under the nation of Israel. They hate to hear that. But ultimately that's going to be their end of these 2/3 of the wicked of the nation of Israel. They're going to have to suffer that second death. But also these heathens, that are here in America, they're going to have to get put to death as well. And these wicked elite, these Rothschilds that think that they're going to get away in their bunkers, they're being preserved to be, the first fruits of slavery, and they hate to hear all that. But ultimately, that's what's going to be their end. And we have to endure all that persecution that we're going through now. And eventually, we're going to have hands put on us, but that's a part of the straight gate. That's a part of this walk. But if we endure to the end, then we'll receive that crown of glory, even if we have to lose our lives, and be a testimony for be a testimony for Yahweh Shai. But that's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say Shalom.